What if you started getting phone calls in the dead of night from someone who shouldn't be alive? This chilling tale will leave you questioning what's real and what's not. Stay tuned until the end, because the truth is more terrifying than you could ever imagine. The story starts with Claire, a high school senior who's been staying up late preparing for her college entrance exams. One particular night, at exactly 2:33 a.m., she is jolted awake by the shrill ring of her phone. Groggy and annoyed, she looks at the screen. The number is unrecognizable. No caller ID. Hesitant, she picks up. There's no voice on the other end. Only faint breathing. "Hello? Who is this?" Claire says, her voice trembling slightly. But there's no answer. After a long pause, she hears faint whispers, too quiet to make out the words. Shivering, Claire hangs up and brushes it off as a prank call. But this is only the beginning. The next night, at the exact same time, the phone rings again. Claire's hands are clammy as she stares at the screen, the same unknown number displayed. Against her better judgment, she answers. The breathing is louder this time, and the whispers are clearer but fragmented. "Come. Find me." Her blood runs cold. She stammers out a demand to know who it is, but the call abruptly ends. Claire decides not to tell anyone. She tries to convince herself it's just her imagination. But the calls continue, always at 2:33 a.m., always the same faint breathing, always whispers that grow more insistent. Why, don't you remember? As the days go on, Claire begins to notice other strange occurrences. Her phone occasionally buzzes with static when she's not using it. Lights flicker in her room. And then she begins to dream. The dreams are vivid and unsettling. She's walking through an old house she doesn't recognize but somehow feels familiar. Shadows creep in the corners. She hears the same whispers from the phone calls, echoing through the hallways. Come back. Claire finally decides to trace the number. Using a reverse phone lookup app, she inputs the number, expecting to find some prankster's name or address, but when the search completes, her stomach drops. The number is listed as belonging to Margaret Reed, her grandmother who passed away 3 years ago. Claire's breath hitches. Her grandmother had been her favorite person growing up, but they hadn't spoken much in the last few years of her life due to her illness. How could this be possible? She decides to confide in her best friend Emma, who's always been a skeptic but supportive. Maybe someone spoofed her number? You know, like a tech-savvy creep trying to mess with you, Emma suggests. But Claire can't shake the feeling that it's something more. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Claire decides to visit her grandmother's old house, which had been abandoned since her passing. The house is about an hour's drive from Claire's home, nestled in the woods. She arrives at dusk. The house looks decrepit, with vines crawling up its sides and broken windows. The air feels heavy, and as she approaches the door, her phone buzzes. She freezes. It's another call from the unknown number. Shaking, she answers. "You're here," a whisper hisses. Claire drops the phone and bolts inside the house, desperate for answers. The interior is just as decayed as the exterior. Dust coats the furniture, and the air smells of mildew. But something draws her upstairs. As Claire ascends the staircase, the whispers grow louder. She follows them to a locked door at the end of the hallway. It's the room her grandmother used to spend most of her time in during her illness. The door creaks open on its own. Inside, the room is untouched by time. Her grandmother's belongings are exactly where they were left: a rocking chair, an old phonograph, and a bedside table with a framed photograph of Claire as a child. The whispers crescendo. Claire notices a small wooden box on the table with her name etched into the lid. With trembling hands, she opens it. Inside are letters and photographs, memories she'd forgotten. One letter catches her eye, dated a week before her grandmother's death. It reads, "Claire, I'm sorry for everything. I wish we had more time. I hope one day you'll find this and understand that I've always been with you. Love, Grandma." Tears stream down Claire's face. The whispers fade into silence. Her phone buzzes one last time. She looks at the screen, but this time it's not an unknown number. It's her grandmother's name. Summoning courage, she answers, "I love you," a familiar voice says. The call disconnects. Claire feels an overwhelming sense of peace as the air in the room grows lighter. In the weeks that follow, the calls stop. But Claire keeps the box close, feeling as though her grandmother had reached out from beyond to remind her of their bond. Claire thought the nightmare was over. She believed that her grandmother's final call was a closure of sorts, a way to say goodbye from beyond. But peace, as she soon found out, was fleeting. 2 weeks later, the calls began again. This time, it wasn't just at 2:33 a.m. The calls came at random times throughout the day and night. Sometimes when Claire was at school, during family dinners, or even during a quiet moment in the library. What made it worse was that the whispers had changed. Instead of faint, comforting murmurs, the voice now sounded cold and harsh. The words were garbled, but Claire could swear they were repeating the same phrase. "It's not over." Desperate, Claire revisited her grandmother's box for answers. She sifted through the letters and photographs again, hoping she'd missed something. That's when she noticed it. A folded piece of paper hidden beneath the lining of the box. It was another letter, but this one was different. The handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. "Claire, if you're reading this, it means something has gone wrong. I tried to protect you, but the past has a way of finding us. Whatever you do, don't go to the basement. Promise me, Claire. Don't go to the basement." Claire's hands trembled as she read the letter. She didn't even know the house had a basement. Claire shared the new letter with Emma, who immediately grew concerned. "A hidden basement? That's straight out of a horror movie," Emma said, trying to lighten the mood, but Claire could see the worry in her eyes. The two decided to return to the house together, this time prepared. Flashlights, gloves, and even a crowbar in case they needed to pry anything open. As they pulled up to the house, the atmosphere was even heavier than before. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the property. The door creaked open as they entered, and the whispers began almost immediately. "Do you hear that?" Emma whispered. Claire nodded, her face pale. The whispers were louder now, leading them to the far end of the house, where they found a door hidden behind a large bookshelf. The door was locked, but Emma's crowbar made quick work of it. Behind the door was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The air grew colder with each step. The walls were damp, and the smell of earth and decay filled their lungs. At the bottom, they found a single, dimly lit room. It was filled with strange objects, old photographs of people Claire didn't recognize, a mirror with its glass shattered, and a journal resting on a small table. The journal had her grandmother's name on it. As Claire picked it up, the whispers stopped. The silence was suffocating. Flipping through the pages, Claire discovered that her grandmother had been keeping secrets, dark ones. The journal detailed a tragedy from decades ago, before Claire was born. Margaret had been involved in a seance with friends when she was young, attempting to contact a loved one who had passed, but something had gone wrong. "We opened a door we couldn't close," the journal read. "I thought I had escaped it, but it's found me again. And now it's found Claire." Before Claire could process what she'd read, a loud thud echoed from upstairs. Emma grabbed Claire's arm. "We need to leave. Now," Emma said, panic in her voice. But as they turned to ascend the stairs, the door slammed shut. The air grew icy, and the whispers returned, louder than ever. Claire screamed as the whispers turned into a guttural growl. The flashlight flickered, and in the brief moments of light, they saw it. A shadowy figure with hollow eyes standing at the bottom of the stairs. "Claire!" It rasped, its voice layered with multiple tones. Emma yanked Claire toward the staircase, and the two scrambled up, pounding on the door until it flew open. They didn't stop running until they reached the car. Claire and Emma never returned to the house, but the experience haunted them. The call stopped, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling that the entity wasn't finished with her. One night, she opened her grandmother's journal again. On the very last page, written in fresh ink, were 3 words that chilled her to the bone. "It's not over." Claire slammed the journal shut, her heart racing. Somewhere in the distance, her phone buzzed. She didn't dare answer. What would you do if you were in Claire's shoes? Do you think the nightmare is truly over? Or is there more to uncover? If you want to see the next part of Claire's chilling story, let us know in the comments below. Your thoughts might just shape what happens next.